Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. You've joined us on a very good day. I'm in a jubilant mood after Sunderland reached the League One playoff final. Pat is in a good mood because Sushi is cat is 2 today. Yep. And Chris is in a good mood because it's Friday. So welcome aboard. Today we're talking about Antoine Griezmann, and our first question came in from @KevinSmart, and he says, or she, will Griezmann be the right fit at Barcelona, or should he go somewhere else? So unless you've been living under a rock this week, you struggle to have not heard that Griezmann has announced that he's leaving Atleti after 5 years at the club. This comes a year after he signed a 5-year contract and released that La Decision video. And it's just a massive loss for Atleti. He's been their top scorer for the last 5 years. He's won a Europa League, a Spanish Super Cup and a European Super Cup. It leaves massive questions for Atleti. And where will he fit in at Barcelona? So that's what we're going to cover today. Chris, what are your general thoughts on Antoine saying au revoir?
Well, he's been brilliant for the club. I didn't realise he'd been quite as prolific as 133 goals as in 256 appearances, because he's always kind of been a second striker, hybrid creator, if you will, as well. And he's been responsible for about 30% of their goals this season, directly, indirectly, when you count all goal involvements. But this leaves them in a bit of a pickle because they have been heavily reliant on him. Of course, they've got Diego Costa, who is a shadow of his former self, has barely made an impression since that pretty sizable switch. I think it was around £50 million, wasn't it? And Alvaro Morata could return to Chelsea on loan. I'm not sure if there's a fixed fee in place, if there's an obligation to buy, or if there's just an option. And they've got other problems throughout the squad as well. Diego Godin looks like he's going to go to Inter Milan, maybe when they resolve their managerial situation. He looks Serie A bound regardless, doesn't he? And of course, Antoine Griezmann and Diego Godin are big friends, so maybe that played a part in his decision to leave as well. They lost big figures in Gabi, whose influence on the pitch was waning, but he was still playing 20 plus La Liga games this season. And Fernando Torres, who kind of chipped in with 10 or so goals in all competitions, didn't he? So the squad is going to need a little bit of a reshuffle. They've had big money signings in Tamar Lamar, who's not quite made the impact that was maybe desired, given the fee attached to him either. And they're left now, in the lurch when it comes to strikers, to goal-scoring options. But fortunately for them, I think there is a few, not megastars, but second-tier talents available that could keep them ticking over on the domestic scene for another year, 2 years. You look at maybe quick fixes in Christian Stuani, who scored 40 goals in 2 Serie A seasons. He's been brilliant since arriving as a kind of bit of a journeyman from Middlesbrough. Raul Thomas, I was singing his praises about 2 or 3 months ago in the podcast from Real Vallecano. Only Messi is having more shots per 90 than Raul Thomas in La Liga football. I think he's on around 3.5, and Messi's on 5. And he's got 14 goals for the season. And this is in a side that only takes 12 shots a game as well. So despite not being, fully tried and tested at the top level, he of course prospered in the second division. He might be worth a punt. Would probably cost in the region of 30. Yeah, just looking at other signings made of that calibre around the league. Could go for Borja Iglesias, 17 goals. He has been decisive this season. I was taking a look at his shot numbers. 2.4 shots a game, which is not massive, is it? 1.5 of them inside the box, though, relying on some very good service. But 17 goals for him, and his expected goals are around 15 as well. So not a slice of luck. Again, someone who's maybe come into the game a little bit later. But I think there's a couple of decent options. But Atleti, unfortunately for them, it's not just in one area. They need to, do this restructuring. But 120 mil is his release clause, isn't it? 10% of that goes to...
I think it's 20 to Real Sociedad.
20%, sorry, to Sociedad, which I think, amounts to a pretty sizable fee, doesn't it? So, kind of leaves them with, maybe 2 decent signings with that fee, 2 very decent signings, or kind of 1 mega star. But, it's not going to be a quick fix by any means.
No, definitely not. There's issues, as you say, sort of all over the park. I mean, obviously, Luca Hernandez is already going to Bayern. Godin's leaving. Felipe Luiz's contract expires in June They're not looking to extend that. Juan Fran's also looking like he's leaving as well. Rodri might be going to Man City, Barcelona, or Bayern apparently as well. So there's a lot of issues for Simeone to sort out this summer. But from the other side of the coin, Pato, where do you think Griezmann, if he does go to Barcelona, will fit in?
It doesn't really make sense to me, to be honest with you. I think that Griezmann isn't sufficiently young for this to really work, and he doesn't really play as a lone striker. Don't get me wrong, he's always been Atleti's chief goal scorer. That is his job, to score goals. But I don't know, he's not going to play off the right because that's where Messi plays. I still think Suarez is going to get a ton of minutes at centre forward because while Suarez is in decline, he's still scored way more goals than Griezmann this season. He's still probably overall a better finisher than Griezmann as well. And Griezmann doesn't play off the left, where their only real player, if they let Coutinho go, is Ousmane Dembele. So unless they go to a 4-2-3-1 and hope that, Frankie de Jong will basically do the work of two men in the midfield, then it really seems like they're going to struggle to fit all of that attacking talent in. And if they'd gone and got somebody young and said, look, Suarez is 32, you're going to play in rotation with him for the next 2 seasons. For instance, Luka Jovic, if they got him and said, you're going to pretty much rotate, you're going to play league games and he's going to play the big matches in the Champions League for the next couple of years, and then you'll be our full-time centre-forward, it would make sense to me. With Griezmann, it doesn't really. And Griezmann as well, he was good this season. He was involved in 24 goals in a side where the second best goal contributor was involved in 7. But it wasn't hugely prolific for him. It was 15, I think, in the league and 9 assists. And I just think that for this amount of money, Barcelona could probably do better. They could have gone and got a forward like Luka Jovic, and then they could have got a left-back who could be the long-term heir to Jordi Alba, which I think is much more of a problem position for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does seem like their other signings or other potential signings this summer in De Jong already confirmed and possibly De Ligt, it looks like that would be the destination that he goes. That's sort of with the future in mind, at least the next 12 years, whereas Griezmann will be 29 at the end of next year. So you'd expect him to have maximum 3-4 years maybe of top production. But I think they did need to get a body in to sort of help Suarez as soon as possible. We've talked about it on other shows that when Valverde looked at his bench in the Liverpool game, he had no striking options to bring on. Kevin Prince Boateng's loan hasn't worked out well. And Suarez has been in decline. He's only scored 2 Champions League goals in the last 2 years.
Yep.
Hasn't scored away from home in the Champions League since 2015. And if Griezmann ultimately helps them win the Champions League, then it'll be a job well done. But it seems a little bit short-termist, which is kind of against what their other transfers have done this summer.
I feel like they're buying him so another rival, another super club can't. It makes far more sense for him to head to someone like a Bayern Munich, doesn't it? Who, they're going to have a lot of openings in their forward line, and I think their second biggest goal contributor was Serge Gnabry this season, who only started 20 league games, and I think he contributed to 15 goals. But I suppose we'll come on to that later. Yeah, I mean, the biggest news, I think, Barcelona-wise, in terms of the complexion of next season, or at least gearing up to next season, is that Bartomeu has come out and backed Valverde. He said he's not going anywhere, he's our man for another year. So we've kind of questioned where the transfers or the motives for the transfers have come in the past, and has Valverde had full say. You'd imagine that he's asked for Griezmann in kind of a last-bid effort to placate Messi to win the Champions League, maybe. But yeah, it is really hard to see where he fits in. And you would imagine that Coutinho goes as a result. But.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be him or Malcolm, and I'd definitely choose Malcolm over Coutinho. I think Coutinho is too good a player to just give a year and a half to, even though it hasn't worked out at all. Pat, on Atleti's front, there's talk of Lacazette, there's talk of Dybala coming in. Mm-hmm. Would either of those two sort of interest you if you were Simeone's director of football?
I mean, to an extent, I think Dybala would make more sense because he's more of that hybrid role. I mean, Lacazette can dribble a bit, but he's not extremely fast. And often Atleti's forwards are required to kind of dribble their way up the pitch and create something out of nothing. Lacazette's a very, very good forward, but he does need some service. And also they've got forwards. They do have Alvaro Morata. They could keep him, and he's been good since being there. So I would probably go for somebody who you could pair with him, whereas Lacazette and Morata, you're still thinking, okay, where does our creativity come from? You're going to have to lean very heavily on Koke and Correa. So I'd be much keener to look for somebody in that hybrid role, and the Sarabia, Dybala types seem like the right sort of guys, really. Though the good thing about Lacazette is this season he's been one of the hardest working defensive forwards in the Premier League. So that would obviously fit in with Simeone's pressing. But I think that if they could get Dybala, you get Dybala, especially if it would mean that they don't even lose any money on the deal. I think actually swapping a 28-year-old Griezmann for a 25-year-old Dybala is an upgrade, and they'd make some money out of it.
Yeah, I mean, Dybala's brother this week, Gustavo, who's also his agent, came out and said he's looking to move. I've got the exact quote here, actually. I'll get it up in 1 second.
I think he said he needs a new challenge, doesn't he?
Needs a new challenge, something like that. I can't find the quote.
Yeah.
But yeah, which could actually potentially kick off a bit of a merry-go-round. You know, if Dybala leaves to Atleti, there's talk of Alexis Sanchez going to Juventus. This potential Griezmann move, wherever he ends up, could actually, create a knock-on effect throughout the entire summer that's going to be really fascinating to watch. It's going to be absolutely great. What I also think is that Griezmann to Real Madrid makes a lot more sense in my eyes. I know they've just signed Luka Jovic yesterday for close to £60 million, but they've only got Benzema, Jovic and Mariano as their striking options. I'd get Griezmann in there as well, and that will solve a lot of their goal issues this year, a lot of their creativity in the final third issues. Obviously, it puts Isco's pace under threat, but I think it's a risk worth taking if I was Real Madrid, rather than Barcelona. It seems like the more natural fit. Chris, what have you made of Jovic's move to Real Madrid? Do you think that's good?
Listen, I really like him. It'd be interesting to see how he sort of works without Rebic and Sebastian Haller, who do a lot of running for him. They obviously line up in sort of a 3-4-1-2, don't they? With Rebic kind of in that hole, and they both pull out wide and really rely on Jovic's great ability to find space. So just watching some highlights of Adi Hurta's men over the course of this season before we came down, and one thing you notice about Jovic is his movement is very, very intelligent, and I think there is more to come from him. You look at his kind of shot numbers; they're quite conservative. He gets himself into very good positions, has a good shot location, but you'd imagine at Real Madrid when he's in a more dominant side and he gets a better, sort of supply line, even though Kostic from the left-hand side has been brilliant this season for Eintracht Frankfurt, that they'll go up and he might be able to, tick over into the 20s in his first season, without, I don't want to say with ease, but sort of as long as he finds a degree of consistency. I think it's smart for £50 million. Of course, Eintracht Frankfurt are making a pretty penny on him straight away, after signing him on loan from Benfica for 2 years. What a transformation that's been in 18 months. But yeah, I mean, did they need him as much as a Barcelona or some other clubs around Europe? Perhaps actually. Benzema's has had a very good season. But you probably wouldn't want him to have to put up those numbers again. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, they definitely need a bit more help in there, not just Jovic, because I think only Benzema got over 8 league goals for them.
Zidane kept playing Ronaldo and Benzema a little bit closer together, didn't he, as his tenure at Real Madrid came to an end, and he might be thinking Jovic and Benzema next one another. But.
So if you are Valverde, first game of next season, just to conclude this section, Pat, what's your front three? How do you get this all going?
My front three is probably Dembele, Suarez, Messi.
Griezmann on the bench?
Yeah, I wouldn't sign Griezmann.
Fair. Chris?
Okay. I mean, I just feel like Dembele and Valverde's relationship is close to breaking. He could almost, be on the precipice of leaving should a very healthy bid come in from, say, a Liverpool, for example. So I imagine he's going to go. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? It's so weird. A combination of maybe Griezmann, Suarez with kind of Messi floating around, but
fair.
We'll see.
It's going to be incredibly exciting, whatever he does. Let's move on to our big match preview. Our big match preview this weekend is the only game we could realistically talk about. It's Bayern Munich hosting Eintracht Frankfurt, which takes place tomorrow afternoon at 2:30. Bayern Munich need a point at home to secure their 29th title and their 7th in a row. They're 2 points clear of Dortmund at the moment, and they have a plus 17 goal difference. And it seems pretty unlikely that Dortmund can overturn it. They're travelling to Borussia Mönchengladbach, who are themselves trying to secure Champions League football. So it looks like it's going to be Bayern's title, but it's by no means guaranteed. And Pat, what have you made of Bayern as a whole this year? Because it's been a kind of a weird season for them.
I think they've been pretty unimpressive, but I also think they've been resisting kind of dealing with their squad issues for a long time. They've been saying lots of smug things for years, saying, oh, well, other clubs go and spend absurd sums of money and we don't do that. And now this year they've kind of realised that they have to, and suddenly money's flying out of the door. I don't know. I still don't really find them terribly impressive. They have such a huge talent advantage over the rest of the league. Don't get me wrong, they're the best side in the league, but not by the sort of margin that you would want them to be. I think that Leipzig have been excellent this season. I think that Hoffenheim's attack is actually more impressive than Bayern's. But that's what happens when you're reliant on people like Ribery and Robben coming off the bench, on Koeman, who's always injured, on Gnabry, who's a very good player but still a very young player. I don't know. It still doesn't feel like Kovac is necessarily the right guy to take them forward. I think that they could have actually aimed a little bit higher with that managerial appointment, and I think they still could. But that said, I think they've lost one league game in 2019, which was that 3-1 loss to Leverkusen, which was actually a little bit unlucky as well. So fundamentally, they've just got enough quality in the squad and enough experience to kind of grind it out when they need to. But I am looking forward to Bayern actually being good again, because right now they're just not a threat to anyone. I mean, you saw in the Champions League, Liverpool had no fear of them whatsoever.
It's fairly routine,
it was just quite an easy game for them, and now you just think, I remember the Bayern Munich side that rolled over everybody in 2012-13 was better at pressing than everybody else. It had a more exciting, faster attack than everybody else, and they were just physically dominant. That midfielder Schweinsteiger and Javi Martinez. So I'm really hoping that this new generation of young talent they get in kind of returns them to not just a winning side, but a team that wins in an exciting way.
It's going to be fascinating this weekend as well, because Lewandowski's on 22 goals and he's obviously looking to secure the Golden Boot. I saw today on Twitter that he's actually underperformed his expected goals by close to 10, which could either show that he's getting quite unlucky, but this is the first time in his Bayern career that he's under-exceeded it by less than 1. So maybe that's the start of a bit of a decline, but obviously 22 league goals, you can't really sniff at that.
7 assists as well, right?
7 assists as well. Chris, what do you give any hope to Eintracht in overturning or causing an upset here?
Well, it's hard to know what Eintracht are going to turn up, isn't it? Because they were so impressive for the first half of the season, which was simpatico with Haller and Rebic and Iman Jovic at their sort of peak in, I suppose, the opening 2/3, but haven't won in their last 5. Got battered when they rotated their squad 6-1 by Leverkusen, didn't they? So Champions League football they can still win and it be out of their control. I think Leverkusen are probably a better side. Gladbach, I've not seen a lot of them this season, so can't really comment. But I've just got to go back to Bayern. They've just been dining out on the core of that Pep squad for so long now, and you look at people who you still think would be key to their success: Javi Martinez, Boateng, and they've not made over 20 appearances in the league. Apart from Lewandowski, I think, or we mentioned Gnabry before as well, haven't we? But Goretzka contributing to the 3rd most goals. I think Ribery's made over 20 appearances in the league for 5 seasons. So you kind of wonder, well, you don't wonder how they've got to this point where they're underwhelming. It's kind of just been coming exponentially, hasn't it? But now with this new wave of talent that are coming in, you do expect them to kind of take it out on the rest of the league next season. But it was interesting in the German press this morning. I can't quite remember specifically who said it. It was Michael something, that no matter what Kovac does this campaign, he's gone. And just going back to talking about Dybala, will he or won't he leave next season? I think that's quite dependent on Allegri, isn't it? Because so he's obviously one of the club sweethearts, but he might feel like he's fallen out of favour with Allegri. Will Allegri, stay after another? Well, not another double because they lost to Atlanta in the quarterfinals in the Coppa Italia. But will he stay is a big question mark. So if Kovac was to leave, who would possibly take over? Maybe someone like Allegri. So yeah, there might be a managerial merry-go-round, in the Bundesliga as well as La Liga, just referencing our conversation earlier. As for Adi Hurta, not an easy job taking over from Kovac after that cup win. It was their first domestic success, wasn't it, in 20-something years. So to maintain that degree of excellency or that culture of winning, you know, big well done to him. And he's done some really interesting things with the side, hasn't he? In the centre of midfield, they've got people like Gelson Fernandes and Jonathan de Guzman, you know, two ageing kind of journeymen who are really putting in a shift in that very demanding formation, because those two deep-lying players in his 3-4-1-2 have to do a lot of man marking, because the forward three, they kind of press the space, don't they? I really like Adi Herta. I'm going to do a little bit more research on him. But they've got some talent in that side, like I mentioned, Kostic. They've got a young centre-half breaking through. I can't quite remember his name. Hinteregger's had a great season as well, and Dicker. So yeah, they're not undickering about, are they, mate?
No, definitely not.
I think this will be a tough test for them, but I'm going to go... I think the European season has taken its toll on Eintracht Frankfurt, and Bayern are going to want to finish with aplomb. I'm going to go 3-1 to Bayern.
Fair. Pat, if you had to say either.
2-1 Bayern.
Fair. Yeah, no,
This is where you go a thrilling score draw.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to change it up this week. I think, obviously, Bayern have been really disappointing this year. Even if they win this game, they'll still finish with their lowest points tally since 2011-12.
And they lost the league that year, right?
And they lost the league to Dortmund, exactly. Eintracht have had a great year, but I think this might be a step too far from them after that Europa League semi-final loss to Chelsea on pens. They're sort of ending the season with a bit of a whimper. I think they're going out in not the best fashion. I can see this being 3-0 Bayern, if I'm totally honest. But yeah, what do you guys think the score is going to be? Let us know in the comments below. We'll move on to quickfire questions. Right, we've talked to death, so we're just going to do one quickfire question and one quickfire question only. This one comes in from @AshleyToomey9. Who is going to make the most expensive transfer this summer? Chris.
Oh, this summer? What, more so than Griezmann to Barcelona? I mean, can I cheat and say next year it might be Mbappe to Real Madrid for 300 million? Apart from that, I think the top clubs are gonna shop a little bit smarter this summer. I think we might see wages plateau a little bit. One of my buzzwords. But I think Jovic at 54 million could represent really good business. God, I can't think. I mean, we had a couple of sizable defenders. Transfers regarding defenders last year, didn't we? Laporte and Van Dijk. Can't see anyone exceeding that. Skriniar's committed to Inter, isn't he?
Yeah,
Koulibaly's 1 year older. Moving on to midfield. Can you think of any midfielders, Pat?
Pogba,
I mean, well, yeah. If Pogba goes, then that would be the obvious candidate, choice. Like 150 mil-ish. But other than that, it doesn't look like Sancho will go to United now. So that would probably have been the best candidate here. Otherwise, you're looking at maybe around the 100 mil mark for Coutinho if he leaves and Eden Hazard.
Fair. I will go Koulibaly to United. I think they'll really go for a centre-half this summer, and it seems like it's going to be Koulibaly. Unhappy with being racially abused by those disgusting Inter fans. It looks like it's coming to the end. They've set 110 million asking price. United should pay it, I think. They just need to get some bodies in that defence.
But what if you can get Mtiti for 60? Do you spend 110 on Koulibaly?
It's a good point.
No.
It's a good point. You'd probably go for Mtiti, I would think.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not quite sure whether Mtiti will be available. I don't know whether that's just paper talk.
I think get Delict. Jesus, how many centre-halves do they want?
That's true. That is true.
It's a mess.
Well made.
It's a mess.
But anyway, let us know why don't we do a poll between the suggestions we've just made? Who will make the most expensive transfer this summer? Right, so that's all we've got time for on this week's Continental Club. Chris, what should the good people look out for?
We've got We Need to Talk on Football Daily, of course. The boys have got a new non-league vlog over on FDFC, and keep your eyes peeled for Stat Wars tomorrow. Is it me versus James Wayne?
It is indeed.
God blimey.
Pat, anything to say?
Yeah, the Sunday Vibes Extra Time podcast is back this Sunday, so make sure that you download and listen to that and let us know what you think of it. Obviously, drop us a review as well on iTunes if you can be bothered, because we really appreciate it.
Nice one. And everyone say well done to Sunderland and happy birthday sushi in the comments below.
Come on, Ackhams.
Bye.